a brief overview of what you do at the moment. What's your day job? And I know it entails a few different things, so just a brief overview, and then we'll perhaps cover it if you get to that point when you tell us how you got to do what you do today.
Well, currently I work for Larsen Building products. They're based in Ireland, two manufacturing plants in Belfast, one right in the harbour. Well, both of them are in the harbour. West Bank Road and MCR, which is a super duper computer controlled plant that they invested heavily in just before the last big crash. But it's all computer controlled. So whenever we take people there, they're always amazed that there's hardly no staff there because it is fully automated. It can run off 2,000 bags an hour, basically. Big plant, 50 metres high, gravity-fed, rotary havers. It is state-of-the-art, so it's fantastic. I look after them. I've been with Larsen now nearly 10 years, or it might even be over 10 years now. Prior to that, I was obviously in adhesives again with another large, well-known brand at Instamac. Had fantastic 8 years there. And prior to that, I was with Pilkingtons in tiles for a good 8 years or so. They were good times as well. That was my first venture into the tiling industry. Prior to that, because I was in carpets, I was in flooring, so I've always been in flooring stroke tiling all my life.
How many years is it altogether?
Too many to think. No, so it's probably 26, 27 years now.
Did you go straight into it from school?
No, I had a couple of little ventures. My first actual job was in engineering.
Okay.
As an apprentice in an engineer in a factory, and that lasted about 3 weeks. I realised I was not cut out to work in a factory. Yeah.
How did you end up doing that though? Because that's interesting too.
It was one of them sort of youth training schemes when we were growing up. It was an option to go and have a look at.
Is it straight from school?
Straight from school.
So no college or anything?
No. Engineering for Dunlop.
There was a lot more of that about there, wasn't there?
Oh, back then, that's all it was, yeah. I mean, I'm from Coventry, and Coventry had a huge amount of engineering and manufacturing background.
Yeah.
You know, we used to make tanks, Elvis.
Yeah.
The Elvis tank factory. I used to go down there and see them when I was a kid. But yeah, Dunlop was my first venture, and I struggled with that clocking in, clocking out, and we never made it back on lunch in time, and used to put the clocking in card about 20 times so you could never read it.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? Like it was so abundant, those type of things, that you could do it even though you didn't really want to. It was there. It was like anybody could go and get a job like that. Really, it wasn't. Nowadays, you would have to prove that you into engineering and you did something at college, or you've already done some kind of course or whatever, because they're just so scarce. But then, even not that long ago, really, there was way more apprenticeships than there is now. Way more.
They used to be, because I think we manufactured...
For school leavers.
Yeah, we manufactured a lot more, though. I mean, again, take Coventry. We had the Elvis tank factory. We had Massey Ferguson's, the massive, tractors. That's where I live now. My house is built on the old site of Massey Ferguson's. Really? So we don't make a tractor anymore. Still got a social club, I'm pleased to say. We also had Jaguar in Browns Lane. That's now a housing site. We also had Peugeot up in Wrighton.
Yeah.
We had GEC in the town. There was an abundance of manufacturing in Coventry that's not there now, which is a shame in one way.
Yeah. So you left there. You barely did that because you
No. That was gone. So I actually then went into insurance, and I was working for a firm called Swinton's, which was a big old brand. That could have been a bomb.
That's your good side. All right, Paul.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Swinton.
Yeah, I went to Swinton's, working in a local town broker. I think Swinton's back then had about 6 in Coventry, and I ended up working at a few different branches and then going round. And I can remember being sent to Banbury for a month and then working over in Birmingham Way doing sort of relief stuff. Had a little mini Metro as a company car, as a pull car sort of thing. But yeah, I did that for a few years, and then a brief little entrance into finance, pensions and mortgages, but found that to be a complete and utter I don't want to say scam, but it was just horrendous. It was all sort of commission, getting all your friends to sign up for pensions and things like that. But that industry's gone through major change over the years, as we know now, and it's a lot more governed, I would say, and rightly so. But I didn't do that for very long, and then ended up at Bonner Floors. That was when I got my first, as I would call.
What's Bonner? I've never heard of them.
Bonner Floors are a massive flooring company that own lots of different, from entrance matting to the big brand that I worked for was Flotex. Back in the day, Flotex was known as the kitchen carpet. It was basically a vinyl and a carpet all in one. It was the washable one. It was on the telly. There was a big advert on the telly all the time with Magnus Pike, I think it was. But very hard wearing. So nylon fibre, you could scrub it with a brush. No matter what you spilt on it, you could get it straight off. And that was the...
So what did you do? Like, it's interesting to know because obviously where you're at now, at Larsen and the chairman of the TTA, it's possible to... So one of my questions will be like, is it possible for a tiler who's a member of the TTA to become the chairman of the TTA? But we'll get to that. So it's good to know what did you do first? Like, what was your very first job at that Bonner Floors?
Bonner Floors, yeah, I was a area sales manager for them, a sales rep. So I used to call on all the independent carpet shops. We also used to call on the likes of Allied Carpets, no longer there, unfortunately. Carpet Right, Alders, big department store, no longer there. They've gone as well. Courts Furnishings, unfortunately another name that's gone. You know, it's a shame when you think back actually to some of the big multinationals. And actually, I went from doing the area to actually looking after all the national accounts, and that was exciting and that was fun. So I had some good time in that industry, and that was a hard sell as well because that was a carpet into a kitchen, which was big in its time. But then we seen the emergence.
When was it? What year are we talking for this?
That would have been.
Sounds very 80s to me.
No, that would have been sort of 95.
All right.
Somewhere around there. I'm trying to work my ages out now. Yeah, mid-90s.
Wow.
Mid-90s. So it was it was good times. It was definitely mid-90s actually, because I can remember we took a load of customers to France, 98, the World Cup. That was fun.
Nice.
Lons we stayed at, and that was at the time, that World Cup, we'd got this massive corporate event. We were taking, I think we took about 30 or 40 over, and all drinking was banned within 20 miles of the stadiums. So
Really?
as we rocked up to the hotel in, I think it was a place called Le Touquet, within 2 minutes, police were swarming this hotel, making sure that the bars were shut and everything like that. So the minute they left, I had a great idea and told all the customers, let's go and check the mini bars in the rooms. So we had
Well, Euro 98. Euro 98, wasn't it?
Yeah, France. Yeah.
World Cup was 96.
Was it? Yeah, was it the Euros? Was it? It was France in 98. England. No, it must have been the World because it was England, Colombia. We went and watched.
No, I'm wrong, yeah. Because it was the World Cup in France. I'm talking out my arse.
I'm fairly sure it was England, Colombia.
Because it was Euro 96, it was in England.
And it might have been, Euro 96 was England, yeah.
And then the World Cup 98, France won it.
And I think Michael Owen scored a wonder goal.
Yeah.
But
we lost. That's the game we lost, isn't it? Argentina. Penalties.
It could have been, yeah. But it was good fun. But that was in the days of trouble at football matches and things like that, which is why the French banned all the alcohol.
That's one of that's one of the tournaments I can kind of remember. I've just fucking proved that I couldn't by thinking it was the Euros, but I can't remember trouble.
I would have agreed with. Well, there used to be loads of trouble at football matches, and we had all the England teams banned from Europe, and we had.
I remember about I can't remember it being bad there. I remember about that time we had a friendly with Ireland, and I remember that game because I used to live in Ireland as well, so I'd be watching, and it got abandoned because the stadium was getting ripped to pieces.
Yeah,
I remember that. What year was that? It was around about then, surely.
I can vaguely remember something like that.
Anyway,
it's a shame, really, because you get that at football, and you can go to a rugby match. Not that I've ever been to a rugby match, but you hear about it, and you can drink in the stadium still, and you stood next to your opposition, and it seems totally different, doesn't it, to football? But no mind.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. I don't know what the rivalries are like though, because the fans, and it gets all blown up by the media as well. So
100% gets blown up.
if
by
you
the
look
media,
at
they love
social
it.
media for football, I've mentioned this before on a podcast actually. It's all geared around taking the piss, or laughing at your opponents, or rivalry. And to be honest, I don't know if there's more of it, but I seem to see more of it just recently of young lads, like maybe not being hooligans, but having that hooligan type. Even
That
like there's a fashion to it, and like
that sort of mentality that
Yeah.
comes through. But so anyway, that was that was that. Carpets, Bonner, Flow Sex. Good times again, and learnt a lot from doing the area to looking after the big nationals. I mean, there's a funny story on that one as well. I can remember Carpetright is Lord Harris, who owns Carpetright, and I can remember taking a new director down to meet him one day, and we sat through a whole hour, myself and a colleague called Jeff, and I can't remember the name of the guy that we introduced. He wasn't with Bonner for long. And every time he spoke to Lord Harris, I was thinking, what's he said? And it weren't until after we said, what were you calling him? And he said, Lloyd Harris. And we said, no, it was Lord Harris. And he'd got it totally wrong, but thankfully he never picked up. So that was a funny day. But
So what happened to Carpetright?
Carpetright's still going.
Yeah.
Carpetright's still going. They're massive. And yeah, good luck to them. Allied obviously have gone. Allied Carpets.
Yeah,
they were another big one. But dealing with their head offices and doing national deals for them and things like that good learning experience again. And then I ended up leaving that and then going to Pilkington's Tiles, who unfortunately aren't there either anymore.
So how does that work, going from carpets to tiles? Was it like sales again?
Sales again. I went to Pilkington's to look after distribution and some of the key accounts and national accounts. I think the tiling industry actually is different in one way to the flooring market, and the flooring market, for instance, is very segregated. So you're either a distributor or you're a retailer. So, and distributors within flooring do not sell to members of the public. They will only sell to a trade shop. Whereas I think that's one of the differences in the tiling market. We have got distribution, and we have got a lot of big distributors, but they'll also have retail shops as well and things like that. So there's crossover that's not as clear and clean as what it is in flooring. But they're two different markets, totally two different markets. So the Pilkington's experience, there's a manufacturing plant up there in Clifton in Manchester. I mean, I still to this day think it's a shame that they're not still there, because again, it's another bit of manufacturing that's gone out of this country. But we used to compete with the likes of Johnson's, who I'm pleased to say are still going, and BCT, British Ceramic Tile, unfortunately another casualty. It's amazing when you look back actually and think how many big companies were there, and now they're not. And what have we replaced them with? It's all imports, I suppose. But being able to manufacture anything in this country at a cost price that keeps you competitive is getting harder and harder and harder, I think. And in my view, it comes down to a lot of what we have to do. Manufacturers and employers in this country, we have to do so much. The latest is all environmental taxes and this tax and that surcharge and rates and minimum wage, and you've got to provide pensions and you've got to provide holidays and minimum wage and everything. And then we say, that's got a cost price of X. And then someone will say, I can get that. I can get that from India for half that.
Yeah. So I made this mistake on one of the other podcasts.
It's not just India, China as well might be one, and you know where I'm on about.
I brought up minimum wage, and I didn't mean it in that way, and I don't suppose you did either. But the other person was like, "Hang on a minute, minimum wage is shit." I was like, "Yeah, I didn't really bring it up I brought it up for a different reason. I do agree actually that conditions, all those things that you've just mentioned, they should be good and they should be better." And I think companies who use that as an excuse, we can't compete, is greed. It's just greedy.
I wouldn't say it's greed.
It's just more profit abroad to say, that's all it is. It's definitely greed. I think you could definitely have a manufacturer, and there is manufacturers in this country that do okay, but you would need to look after the workers and the minimum wage, and don't even give them the minimum wage. Give them a wage, a good wage for a good job, and train them properly and all the rest of it. But they won't, because it's greedy. It's too easy to do it somewhere where it's cheaper.
I'm not sure I'd class that as greed from the manufacturers. I've always been of the opinion, and we are certainly my normal, if you've got good staff, train them well, look after them well, pay them well, and don't give them the excuse to go somewhere else. Because if they end up going somewhere else, you've then left with a headache of trying to re-recruit. You'll probably 9 times out of 10 end up paying the new person more than what you paid the last person. And quite often you'll wish you'd have kept the last person. So I always believe, and we believe, just if you've got good staff, make sure you keep them. Don't give them an opportunity to go elsewhere, and pay them more than they're worth, etc. Then they won't go, and then you create good atmosphere, good team spirit, and all the rest of it. But what I mean by that is, how can you compete when you're competing against a factory somewhere that hasn't got these parameters on them? They don't really care about the ozone or the carbon emissions. They're getting this, they're state funded, and they're paying 50p an hour to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So that means the person that's now going to be on £10.50 and he's earning a fortune. I wouldn't say. So I'm not saying minimum wage is a bad thing at all. I think it's a good thing that we should have things like that to make sure that there is a minimum standard, there is a minimum requirement. But that doesn't mean everyone should be paid that. I think you should pay them exactly what they're worth. And if you've got good staff, look after them. You don't want to lose them.
Yeah. It's hard to compete. There's definitely greed involved, but it is hard to compete, and that's why companies end up closing down sometimes. But I think it's possible.
If you're,
but they won't. No one. The big companies won't do it.
Yeah. But if you go back to ceramics, for instance, and a cost price of manufacturing a piece of ceramic tile by the time you've had your kilns running over here with the prices, etc., and importing the clay and the biscuits and everything, and your cost price is £7.50 a metre. There's no way you can manufacture and compete in the market when you could back then go and buy it for $3.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, if you were going to look at greed, why do I need to manufacture it here? I could buy it for $3 and I can still sell it for the price we used to get, so I'm going to make more money, but I'm not now manufacturing it in this country. So this country loses out because we then suddenly have no manufacturing base. We lose all the jobs and we're just importing from somewhere else.
Yep.
But the morals have gone, because the morals we were trying to work to, i.e. make sure there's a minimum wage, make sure that there's a pension provision, make sure that they've got holidays, make sure that they're whatever. We forget that now, because now we're just buying up price. That's where I'd slightly struggle. And if you come right up to date, everything's about what's the company doing for the environment, what's this, you get a tender document coming through, you've got to prove this, you've got to prove that, you've got to have your ethics on your work, your ethics, all of this, you've got to jump through hoops to tick boxes to get through. And then at the 11th hour, they swap it to something that they're going to import from somewhere else where they can't do those checks. So I find it quite funny in a way. It's a balancing act, I suppose.
Yeah, and then ultimately with all those the modern requirements to be a supplier, and I know where you're coming from, and I almost know the companies that you're talking about as well. Ultimately,
I'm not talking about any company. You'd know, being from your PLC land, PLC world.
I'm not going to. The type of companies that ask those types of questions. So if anybody, like for anybody listening, a supplier will get asked all sorts of questions, and they'll get
do a factory audit.
So they want to audit you. But some companies' audits are more stringent than others, and they'll be very stringent sometimes as well. And then ultimately, your place probably doesn't do this, but they'll have all these country of origin, prove that there's no child labour involved, all these different things that you have to do. But then a lot of the things, they actually don't go all the way with it, because somewhere down the line, there is child labour or what.
Well, I've heard of big known brands that have failed audits, etc., for things like child labour. But
Yeah.
as with anything, I think there's always different ways. And if I tell you that I'm going to audit your factory next week and I'm sending somebody over, it's very easy to fudge that audit as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's
That's
kind of what I'm
the other
getting
thing.
at.
If you're going to do an audit, I would suggest you should just be able to turn up and actually do that audit.
Yeah.
If you pre-warn anybody, then if I tell my sales guys, right, I want to audit your cars next week when you come in and make sure they're clean. I know every one of them took it to the car wash the night before.
Yeah.
So you know, it's as simple as that. But
Yeah, and kind of what I was
And
getting
we'd all
at.
do that
A
as
lot
well.
of it is for show.
totally.
So, and it's like they're ticking boxes so they can, because they may have to do it legally. So like, legally we've ticked all these boxes. Move on now.
Well, wasn't it? Was it Primark many years ago? One of the big clothing companies anyway had a factory somewhere that collapsed, didn't it? And that that caused a big scare everywhere. Then all the big corporates started.
Yeah, sweatshops and wherever they are.
We have to start auditing all of our factories and our suppliers because we don't. They don't want to be associated with it. In fairness, they're not.
But they still are.
They maybe still are, but they turn. I'd say they don't do it knowingly, but they do turn a blind eye. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
How else am I going to get that garment for 80 cents?
Loads of companies are the same, and it's our fault. I've said this before on a podcast as well. It's our fault, the West.
Well, that's what I'm just saying there. We have people demanding all of these things on us as suppliers, but then they go and source it from somewhere else, and you think, right, well, they don't do that. So it is all for show. But yeah, you can't get me started on that one.
So you were at Pilkington's. What did you do at Pilkington's? So you were sales rep?
Sales, yeah. No, I looked after the key accounts and the distribution side. So that was good times. Got involved a little bit with the likes of B&Q, people like that. Some of the distributors that we used to use. We had a sales team calling around. Again, that was very much distribution. So certain ranges that we did well. We used to have some great little kitchen range called Directions, I think it was, from memory.
So back then, when it was Pilkington's, BCT, and Johnson's, basically, was there anyone else? Was there anyone else?
They were the three main ones.
Yeah, there was a few knocking. I know because I'm from. There was a few knocking around, but even by then they were dying. Even before then, even.
You've still got the likes of Fired Earth, which are fantastic, high premium brand, handmade, and all this sort of things. I think.
Are they UK manufacturers?
Fired Earth.
I bet they're not now. If they ever were, surely.
Craven Dunhill, they manufacture as well. They do
yeah.
some really nice jobs, bespoke jobs. Certainly restoration and things like that. So there is some more niche manufacturers.
So what I was going to ask you with those, let's say the big three, there was a few others knocking around. The tile industry is huge in this country, always has been. So were those three sharing out all that work? What was the imports like back then?
I would say we manufactured a fair chunk, but all of those. I mean, you had ceramic prints as well. Remember, they were putting decks onto tiles and things like that. But they were a big player in with the sheds. But we all ended up diversifying. We had to. So a lot of the ranges Pilks would bring in would be from overseas. And then you'd have a lot of the distributors saying, well, why should I buy it off Pilks? Because I'm buying off those distributors as well. I might as well just buy it direct myself. And, they wouldn't go down that route. And it was the same. The hardest thing, I think, back then really was how can you compete when your manufacturing cost price is X amount per metre and I can go and source it from somewhere else for...
Was it really, though?
Oh, it was, yeah, totally. Well, if it wasn't, they'd still be here, wouldn't they? So Pilkington's ended up going bust. Ceramic prints.
So they've been around for God knows how long. I don't know any of this. I'm just asking questions now. So were they moving with the times as much? Because you weren't importing from India then. We weren't importing from places like India then. It would have been Spain and Italy.
No, it would have been Spain and Italy and places
so
like that.
So why can't we compete with Spain and Italy?
Because I can always remember a good friend in the industry saying, manufacturing cost price in much more recent times of a ceramic at £7 and £8. And they're saying, why don't you make porcelain? Well, that's going to be even more expensive to make because obviously it's a lot more fired and everything else. And we can't even make ceramic for the price that we can import porcelain at. Yeah. So it's just a market that is going to be very hard to break.
Yeah.
And we're probably not as geared up for him. And imports, of course, I think the world's got smaller, hasn't it? So it's easier to import from China these days, and it's easier to import from Spain.
Globalization
It does.
made that argument stronger. But I think, don't know. I'd have to ask somebody
There's nothing more that I'd love, having worked in the industry, that Pilks would still be manufacturing now, and we'd have great, made in Britain, Pilkingtons, British ceramic tiles down there in Devon. I mean, that was huge for the area that was in. And that was a state-of-the-art factory as well. So, but it's just a shame that they've all gone.
Yeah.
Good luck to Johnson's carrying the flag still. That's what I say. But then I think they've got plants in different parts of the world as well, haven't they? So,
yeah, it is a shame. I think Johnson's literally the last one now, other than handmade and specials. I think they are, aren't they?
Probably, yeah, mainly as a large producer, yeah.
Wow. So then, how long were we there?
Pilkington's was, it was originally a PLC when I went there. So Mary Lorraine Hughes was the CEO. And then it got bought. It got bought by Kevin Whiteley and a chap by the name of Ray Tarr and Steve Lloyd. And they took over at Pilks. It was bought from out of the PLC. The PLC retained a bit of land that they had down Bournemouth way on by Sandbanks, etc., where the Dorset and Woolliscroft factory was. That was worth a fortune, that bit of land. It was the thing that kept them going. But that stayed. So Ray, who were from the tile industry as well, and Kevin Whiteley, they were involved. I think it was a Tile City or something many, many years ago. They wanted to give it a real good go and have a push, but I could just see it being totally different. So a year or so into that is when I got the opportunity to go and join Instamac. I had a conversation with them. A chap by the name of Paul Butcher, I always remember the first meeting him, etc. Never heard of them, went down, very impressive place.
Where were they? What year was this? Because I know it's pretty cool what they've got now, but what were they?
Oh, it was prior to that. That was prior to at the previous place. Can't think of the name now. I could drive to it because I'm not used to it. Not far from where they are now. It's only around the corner, really, a couple of miles away. But I ended up leaving Pilkingtons and joining them and looking after the ultra tile side. And had some good fun there as well. And that was great. And unfortunately, a few years later, Pilkingtons finally succumbed, and then they went. So, turned out to be the right move.
Yeah.
But still within the industry, because once I'd got into the tiling industry, actually, you said it's a massive industry. I don't actually think it is that big. It's not as big as some people think.
It's huge. Just the UK is $1 billion. $1 billion. But just tiles, $1 billion.
Yeah.
And then add kitchens onto that, another couple of billion. Add bathrooms onto that, another couple of billion. Billions and billions of pounds flying around. And we're all arguing with each other.
Everyone arguing with each other, yeah. But it's not. It's not as big as some industries, that's for sure. And it's nice because a lot of people, they all know each other. I think it's quite a. Some people will probably laugh, but I do believe it's a friendly industry. I think it's got tougher, certainly tougher. From there's lots of people that have been in the industry for 40, 50 years, etc., and had some tile businesses many years ago, and it was absolutely fantastic. Whereas now it's a lot more competitive. Times have changed again. Things have moved on. 10 years ago, everyone was saying the internet. No, nobody will buy a tile on the internet. Now look at it.
Yeah.
Some of the biggest players we've got are all on the internet.
Still hard to do, by the way. It's very hard to do well, by the way.
To do it well, yeah, you need
very difficult. Tiles, I think people still like to see them. The ones that do it well do it really well.
100%. And it's a lot harder than just coming up with a website and there you go, I'm going to sell loads. They're absolute specialists at what they do. They know what they're doing. They've got huge teams behind them as well. There's a hell of amount of work that goes into it, and they do it fantastically well. And it's growing. So now we're seeing the big influx of 20mm porcelain for external, and I think that will continue to grow as well. Yeah. Hopefully.
I think it was. I think even before lockdown, which is a while ago now, but it was becoming way more mainstream even then. Because I remember the year before, it caught people out a little bit because a lot of people did, oh shit, we haven't got the stock, and it was getting towards the end of the summer.
Yeah, it's very seasonal, so you need to have it in at the right time.
Yeah.
And the other thing is as well, you need to have the right sort of volumes, because you'll find that the 20mm stuff, won't be a 6 square meters. It could.
I tell you how
180.
popular it is. I got rid of a load of tile stock recently, and it actually wasn't easy to. I was just clearing out basically, clearance sale, but the 20mm went immediately, all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, so it's way more popular than it used to be. So Instamac for how many years?
Around 8 years.
And then you moved to Larsen. Why? Pay rise.
New challenge.
You say yeah. I would always move for a pay rise.
To be honest, it wasn't just about pay. There was a few things. I was at a different stage of my life then as well. The kids were young. This was going on. That was going on, and I had an opportunity. And a couple of other colleagues had gone across to Larsen, and then the owner then.
Where did Larsen? Did they come from nowhere? You didn't live too far from Instamac, so that was not too bad for you. Then Larsen's obviously Belfast.
Yeah.
Did they? I know they've been around for a while, but did you always know about that? Were they always there, or did they do some kind of growth?
No, I'd certainly heard of them. They'd tried a few times in the UK. As I say, just before that previous.
So where did
big crash? They invested 8, 9, or 10 million or something building this big super duper plant, and then the minute they finished building it, the market crashed. So they'd been trying to break into England a bit more, or GB as we're known.
Yeah.
And they'd had a guy here selling this, and then a guy there, and then a bit here, and then somebody else was trying. And
so prior to 2008, that they've been doing quite well in Northern Ireland, and I presume Ireland.
Ireland as a whole, Northern Ireland, Southern Ireland, then Larsen are certainly the market leading brand.
Oh, really?
So they've been manufacturing since 1975. So it'll be 50 years soon of manufacturing. So that's longer than quite a lot of companies that we know over here. So 50 years will be a fantastic milestone. I just had a conversation with them. They come over here. A colleague had gone there. He said, "Will you come and have a meal with me?" I went and had a meal with this guy, and I just liked him. And I decided they put someone together. It was a tough choice. I have to say, it was a very tough time. But looking back, it's been fantastic. It was the right move for me personally. We've done exceptionally well. We changed an awful lot of things. It was just an opportunity to say, look, what you've been doing, I've been watching it from a competitive side, and you keep doing this, it's easy because you can just knock it straight away. You need to do X, you need to do that. You need to look at your range, you need to look at your packaging, you need to look at how you sell it, you need to look at what you actually want to achieve. And it was an open book. Well, let's do it. And we're very big as well, not just on the tiling side. We're very big on the highways and the streetscape side as well. We do an awful lot throughout GB on that inner city development. And
so, how many people work there? And is it just Belfast? That's it. No, nobody work anywhere else.
No, we've got a full sales team covering Northern Ireland, from cement admixtures to tile adhesives, obviously, to flooring products, to all different sort of specialist cements, to paints and fence treatments, wood treatments, expanding foams, and probably a bit more, I suppose, for people that recognise it, a bit more Everbuildy over there, vaster range products. And then we do all the same down in Southern Ireland as well. And we had an office down in Dublin. So we've got a whole sales team down there. So, and then over here, well, I've got sort of 4 on the road over here, and then Matt, who looks after the streetscape and some of the highways products, he's got 4 or 5 again. And then we've got an office backup of another 4, etc., that support the guys on the road and do the orders. So we've got a sales office base there in Tamworth, which works extremely well. And that's what it's all about. It's all the guys on the road do their bit, and then they're backed up by the internal coordinators and team down there in Tamworth to support everyone.
what's the biggest? Which side of it is the biggest? The tiling or the streetscape, as you call it?
Tiling. Yeah, in GB, then we edge slightly.
Oh, so I'm familiar with the tiling stuff, obviously, and with the other stuff a little bit, only because I used to look at all your stuff anyway. So do you only deal with tiling? Are you tiling?
Yeah, tiling and flooring. Yeah. We don't bother with a lot of the cement. We don't do the cement admixtures. We don't do all the mortars. We don't do all of the paints. And the thing is, it's something that we might look at now for the builders merchant side of the market over here. But no, we work purely over here. I'm purely on tiling, tile retailers, tile distributors, large contractors, things like that. And and the highway side with Matt and streetscape.
And product-wise,
tiles, yeah.
Is there anything? Because we know what you do. Is there anything coming up? Future products that is there any trends that you see that?
I think the market's changed over the years. I don't see huge amounts of change coming through. I think if you went back, it was probably 80% ceramic, 20% porcelain. It's probably completely topsy-turvy to that these days. I think tile sizes we've all seen have got bigger and bigger and bigger, which is bad for grout sales, because now we don't sell as much grout, obviously, because no need for it. Bring back the 10x10 and the 6-inch tiles, I say. But yeah, we've seen the sizes improve, get bigger. We've seen 20mm coming out, but apart from that, I don't really see too much change coming through. I think tiling as a whole, we need to try and look after and keep promoting, because the tile industry itself is being attacked.
Yeah.
And that's where the Tile Association comes in.
Yeah.
Because that's what that is purely about, is trying to promote tiles. So it's not, we can be our own worst enemy sometimes. We're seeing house builders, for instance, despecifying tiles as a covering and going more for your LVT and other forms, and on the lower end of the development side, if you like, and I don't mean to categorise this product as that, but there's plastic sheets on the wall rather than the tiles, etc. And sometimes that's down to, you've got to add up the whole package. It's actually most of the time it's not the cost of the tile, because the people that are dealing with house builders are selling them at
Do you want me to tell you what it is?
Pretty competitive pricing.
It's exactly what I said before. Greed. It's greed.
Yeah, well, it comes down, but if you're buying a tile for £10, but it's going to cost you £40 a metre to fit it, all of a sudden you can look at another covering that's going to be double that.
Yeah, but it's shit.
And half.
In comparison. It's greed.
Greed by who?
It depends who we're talking about. So
it's not greed from the tile manufacturer's side.
No, not at all. No. I'm talking about ultimately, let's say the house builders. I'm not saying people who work for them, but ultimately at some step, that new builds are poor quality. Everybody knows it, and everybody knows why. It's not the guys who are working on it. It's probably because they've got no time, shit materials, employ maybe the wrong people or untrained people, and it's greed. That's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, everybody who makes anything or sells anything needs to make a profit. So
yeah, but profit's not the most important thing. But it is.
Yeah, but
to these big businesses,
what you can't get away from. There's no point being in business if you're making a loss every year, but everyone's happy and wearing a furry hat. If I'm making houses and I'm doing £100 of them a year, and I've only got 90 quid, so I've made a loss. That's great if I've got deep pockets and I'm doing it just because I want to carry on, but that's not the way it is it?
No.
So I think where we have to look is, why are they moving away from tiles? And certain things are saying because they're more environmentally friendly and all this sort of thing, which starts getting
it's
awkward.
Because the other things are cheaper.
Exactly.
That's it.
But you've got to add up the whole cost. It's not necessarily just the tile, then it's the fixing cost, and then it's this cost.
Yeah.
And then you've got the problem, actually, 3 out of 10 of them have a failure within the first X amount of time, and then they've got to go back and refit them because they've cut corners somewhere. I mean, I always remember going to a site once where they'd suddenly started having issues. This was in I can't remember if this is going back some time now. I can't remember if I was at Pilks, But it was a big house builder anyway, and then we were sat in a meeting because they suddenly started getting lots of cracks on the bathroom floors. And some guy turned up to this one meeting and said, "Do you think it's got anything to do?" This was after about half a dozen blooming meetings about whose fault it was. And he said, "Do you think it's got anything to do with the fact that we took an extra beam out the roof, out the floor?" And everyone's looked at him. So they've gone from 400 centres or something to 600 centres, basically at the same time as all this cracking started. So it does always come down to somebody. He's done a great job somewhere because he's cut the cost of that floor. The knock-on effect was 12 months later, they've had huge amounts of failures. So one man's ticked a box, but he's created headaches for everyone else. It's not down to the...
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can call it greed or you can call it needing to make money, maybe. I think greed is quite strong.
It's greed. You could go all the way down the line, and it's not. You could say, "Oh yeah, we needed to make money at this stage." Ultimately, at some point,
I tell you what is greed.
It's greed.
I tell you what is greed, and I will not argue with you at all on greed on this one. Is energy companies at the moment. that is without any shadow of a doubt legalised extortion.
Well, yeah,
and that's what's probably fueling most of the inflation that we've got at the moment, because everything comes back to energy prices. Whether you're trying to manufacture a tile, or whether you're Mr. Kipling, everything comes down to. Even the water rates are going up, and their actual argument for putting water up by the most ever was energy costs. So if we solve energy costs, you'll probably solve a lot of the issues that we have.
That's a bit. It's gross in it as well, that, because they can't even hide behind anything. They're
literally, that is pure greed.
Yeah.
We're sorry. We're sorry. Your energy bills are going up. And by the way, did you notice we've just had a record year for 10 years?
Yeah.
We've made more in the last 3 months than we made.
With things like that as well, because I completely agree with you. It's fucking disgusting, and most big companies, because they're faceless, you're not having to go at anyone who works for them or anything like that. It's just capitalism, and that big companies will just keep fucking.
The press don't say anything either.
Yeah. They'll just but why?
The press
remain
extremely quiet on all of that. It's just, and then you even get the others coming out.
Because they're all intertwined.
Well, they need to invest in environmental issues for the future. Yeah. They've actually come out and said they're going to go back the opposite way. So you can call that greed.
100%, mate. So you touched on the TTA. So you're the chairman of the TTA. If you just, what is the tile? It's the Tile Association, by the way, the TTA. It's not even the TTA, is it? It's just TTA, the Tile Association.
Yeah, the first T stands for the
TTA.
So otherwise you'd have the Tile Association.
So what is it?
The Tile Association, it's actually an amalgamation of several other associations. So there used to be, for instance, the National Tile Fixers. I think it was the NMTA, the National Tile Fixers Association. There was also the NTA, which was the National Tile Association, which was mainly distributors. There also used to be the Tile Promotion Board, which I think was mainly sort of the retail end of it, etc. Well, they all sort of amalgamated and formed this one, the Tile Association, and that gives us the opportunity for a unified voice. The Tile Association... When was this? Well, that was many years back, 2000s or early 2000s, something like that. So the Tile Association, no matter what anyone might think, is basically open to anyone within the industry to join. And it's all about promotion. All the Tile Association does is try and promote tiles. We're massively working on the environmental side of tiles at the moment, which is hugely important to specifiers and so on. It's about promoting standards. It's about making sure tiling's done right. It's about trying to keep house builders, for instance, like I spoke about a minute ago. They're delisting tiles because of failures. We don't want failures. Every time there's a failure, that's a bad thing for the industry. So it's about getting the message out there and giving everyone the support they need to keep promoting tiles. COVID, COVID's gone as far as I'm concerned. It's finished, and it was awkward for everybody. It was strange times, and we all had to work differently. And
it's gone. It's funny, isn't it? That? It's gone now. It's gone now.
Yeah. Yeah, there's different views on that. I mean, it caused no end of obviously turmoil. We all had to operate differently. We all had to work differently. The association was never busier than through those times, etc. With the amount of phone calls that the office were getting, the guidance. it actually enabled the association to show a lot of good in a way. We had direct links to government departments like the Department of Industry base, and people would ask us a question. We could fire an email straight off and get an answer straight back for them. We were trying to, because we went through a bit of a major change in that. We started the lockdowns and things like that, and tile shops, tile retailer, tile distribution that were classified as essential, which meant we could open. Same as a DIY hardware shop or a B&Q, for instance, as some of the big sheds remained open. If you were a clothes shop, you were shut, etc., because you were classed as retail and things like that. So early doors, it became apparent that we were on that category and we could issue guidance in that way. And as long as you're following these rules and so on and so on, then all of a sudden, halfway through or part of the way through, we were removed. Several other industries had been removed, like bathroom retailers, kitchen showrooms, etc., were all shut and things like that. And I don't know, again, just my view, maybe we were thrown under the bus, maybe by somebody as why are they still open? So the essential grading on tile shops was removed, which then that threw everyone into turmoil. So we had to quickly understand and get back in touch. And this was also whilst fighting for trade people. Can tradespeople still work? Because they've got to. I mean, if you think about it as well, construction was always pushed throughout. They always said construction will carry on, construction can, but you've got to work in a COVID-secure way, stay 2 meters away from your colleague or whatever. So we were battling hard for that. So at one point then we'd got, right, so the retail members were being told have to close, but our independent tilers, they can carry on because they're tradespeople, and as long as they work in a bit, but where are they going to get their gear from? And it was getting quite frustrating in the end. It was getting quite bizarre because
it was ridiculous.
So they have to actually go and join that queue that was 400 people long at B&Q to get their gear in the morning, but now they're paying retail price when they should be paying trade price. And they've all got their retailers that they use to go in and buy their trims and cutters and adhesives and tiles and that in the morning for the jobs. So we had no end of work done at that point, and then we got new guidance issued, which we could then issue to all the retailers that yes, you can open. Your showroom part needs to be cordoned off from memory. You have to have your trade counter open. It should really be click and collect. It should be phoned orders through previous and all this sort of thing. But at the end of the day, we managed to get it all sorted. We did
there was a thing at the time as well, because I remember so certain shops should close. All right. At the time, I was like, yeah, this sounds like a good idea because nobody knew. I was arguing with, not arguing, I was talking to my boss at the time saying, I think we should close even before you guys had chance to get any guidance from the government. But then obviously we could open, so that was good. But then we had to close again. Was I even there then? But anyway, everything that you've just said. But at the same time that the government, it was a total fuck up, in my opinion, what they were doing, because it was like, is it dangerous or not? Because, like you've just said, there's literally B&Q with fucking traffic light system outside with hundreds of people in the queue and hundreds of people in the shop, but you're telling other shops they're not allowed to open. So, but
I thought it was bizarre.
It was ridiculous. But and what was happening at the same time? There was a DIY boom. It was everybody was doing stuff on the gardens in the house. So, and eventually, when everyone was allowed to open, I think they all did well for a short period. But yeah, it was fucking stupid.
It was trying to work around it, and I mean, there's a large shopping centre near where I live, and I can remember saying there's a high-end jeweller in there that probably has about 10 customers a day, could quite happily work one at a time.
Yeah.
But he had to shut. There was a computer shop, etc., that again probably doesn't have huge amounts, but somebody needs a repair.
Imagine how much money, right? Because I saw that B&Q queue. Yeah. So I saw the B&Q queue because it's next to a Tesco where we live. So I went into the Tesco. Imagine how much money Tesco and B&Q and whoever was allowed to stay open at the time made. They must have.
I mean, you've seen the B&Q figures. They did exceptionally well out of it, but is that their fault? They did well out of it. I mean, that shopping centre, I'll just finish, there was 3 or 4 shops in there that probably don't have any more than 10 or 12 visitors a day, and they're all shut. But the ones that were open was the big Tesco's and the big Iceland that were just queuing to get into them. It was just, I found it a bit bizarre.
Yeah.
But
there was something really weird going on.
if you want to know the most weirdest thing, so we get the guidance through when we fought it and found out that they can open, and we were working with some of the big retailers in the country as well, all together trying to get this all cleared up so that everyone knows what they get. And we had the guidance through from Bays, so I can remember talking to Kay at the TTA and saying, right, let's get our understanding of that down in writing, and then I'll send it back to them and say, this is what we're going to issue to our members. And we got it back saying, yep, that's correct. That is a great understanding. Admittedly, they did say that is a great understanding of a really muddy set of rules in a way, but no,
well done. We don't get it, but
Yeah, so I said, right, now we've actually got, so what we're going to issue, we've had actually sanctioned and okayed, if you like, from the Department for Industry. And that went out then to all the retailers who were then getting visits, and then they were showing them a copy of this, and more often than not, then the trade and standards guys were going, yeah, that's fine. Okay, as long as you're adhering to that, then I have no problem. Because they all work for the Department for Industry. They really work for Bays. Although they're individual councils, local councils up and down the country, etc., and they all have their own individual trading standards officers. Then we'd get the odd one where it was like, I don't care what they say, you're shutting. And then we'd then go back to Bays and say, look, we've got this guy who's telling this shop he has to shut, but you've told us they can open. And their actual answer to that was, well, we'd issue the guidance, but it is down to the individual trading standards interpretation of it.
There was a lot of that at the time, wasn't there, from the government. We're not telling you what to do. We're just we're just suggesting what we think you should do. So if you do it, then it's like...
He works for you. You've issued the guidance, and he's making his own, and he can do that. I just found that really bizarre. But we had to stand back. So we did have, for instance, you'd have somebody who's got 20 shops or so, and one of them shut because that town, the local trading standards officer, would not back down and would threaten everything. So people had to make the choice.
It was crackers, wasn't it? It really pissed me off, because it was like, the reason that local guy, at the time, it wasn't, you can't blame him, because he might have been thinking, this is really bad, so I'm just going to make everybody close. But then there was other places open. So my point throughout all of that was, it's so inconsistent. Is it bad or not? And then the schools are open, and then the schools are closed, and then the schools are open again. And I'm like, well, surely if it's that bad, you wouldn't open schools. If it was that bad, I actually think the schools should have stayed open. But what I'm saying is, if it was so fucking bad,
I get
you wouldn't have opened schools.
But they were also following all the advice from the scientists, and they had their moment of glory, in my view. The scientists were there. Look, there was something there. I'm not an anti it at all. I think it was obviously tough times. There was obviously, I know people that died from it. So in it as well. So, and I think it was a balancing act of what you can keep going. You can't just shut the whole economy down and everyone stay in your house for the next 6 months. No. So it was a balancing act. And I think
point is,
the way I always interpreted it from what they said, if we shut down the catering side, or we shut down the pubs, if you like, it minimises a bit of risk there, so we can now open that section. So there was winners and there was losers all the time.
No, it was completely confusing. I'm not saying it wasn't bad. I'm not saying.
I would say it was. I would say it was confusing. I'd agree with that.
Extremely confusing, because it was like, we're doing this, but we're not doing that. But by doing this, if it's that bad, everyone who goes there is going to get ill. Yeah. So I'm like, what the fuck?
There was massive winners and massive losers throughout the whole of that time. It was strange. If you take my house alone, I had a daughter who was at university. Spent a whole university time down in Cardiff, actually. She went to Cardiff to learn English. I still can't get my head around that, but she did well. She did well in the end. That's all that counts. But the whole time, I think the first couple of months, she did a month, and then they were all on strike. And then they come back after Christmas, and they were going on strike again, and then COVID hit. So her 3 years was wiped out. She never really got that experience, unfortunately, that I think most students go for the university for. So she missed out on that. My son was finishing his GCSEs, so he sort of lost out. And at Larsen, we've seen phenomenal times. We had record year after record year. working like the clappers. The manufacturing team were fantastic, round the clock, in and out, and he's off now, and he's tested, and he's, it was so awkward for everyone, and all the different things you got to do. And then I got a wife who works for an airline, and we're not far from Birmingham Airport, so we see the aircraft coming in and out all the time. And you'd go on your walk and things. Everyone took up walking, didn't they? Because there was nothing else to do, and there was just no planes in the sky. It was just
great.
It was just weird, and I feel for the airlines. I don't know how they didn't. They've ended up having to refinance, and they didn't get any special. They didn't get any special extra. And then you got all the big hotel chains as well. You can imagine them poor gits. If you're Hilton, for instance, Australia's doing well, but Europe's down slightly. America's doing well, but this is no, they were shut everywhere. Everywhere in the world, they were shut.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then again, they've all managed to have refits. I don't know how that's happened, but that's a bit different.
So the Tile Association, so as far as I see it, you can be a member if you're a tiler, and you can be a member if you're a retailer, and you can be a member if you're a manufacturer.
We have lots of different characters. The Tile Association, you can look at it two ways. You can say it's a strength, or you could actually say it's a weakness, maybe. But the Tile Association is not quite unique, but nearly unique. It represents the whole industry. So we have from independent tile fixers, the sort of guys that are buying off the retailers day in, day out. They're doing all the work we want. So when I want my bathroom done, who do I go? I go to a local tiler that I know, and he does that. I want my kitchen retiling. We represent all the thousands of independent fixers out there. We're trying to help and work with, and they're some of the ones we got all the guidance for. Obviously, the tradesmen can carry on working. We also represent contractors, so we do an awful lot of work. We've got some of the biggest contractors in the country that are members of the Tile Association. We also have lots of retailers that are members, manufacturers, from your underfloor heating companies to your trim companies to adhesives, obviously, tile companies, etc., manufacturers. There's not many of them, as we've said earlier on, in this country. We have some overseas manufacturers. We have agents, tile agents, as members. They're members. The internet companies. We have a section for internet now. And if you went back 10 years, we wouldn't have had that probably. We don't want internet people selling, but the internet is it's a very professional sector. Any sector that we have as well. So to be an independent fixer, then we have a set of criteria, if you like, that you've got to be X, Y, and Z. If you tick that, you can join. If you're a retailer, you've got to adhere to this, things like that. And that's just around legalities as well, that you're going to price it and you can offer a sample service, and that you've got technical backup, etc. To be a tile retailer, if 10% of your business is tiles and everything else in your store is toilet rolls and God knows what else, then you're not. It's got to be, you are a specialist tile retailer, etc. So that if somebody does come online, find a retailer or find a tiler, we know that we are then directing them to a proper place. So, for instance, a shed, by that I mean a B&Q, a Wix, or whatever, although we do work with these people, but more on the training side and giving them knowledge for their installation teams. We could never have B&Q listed or a Wix listed as a specialist tile retailer to go to, because we know what's going to happen there. If somebody's going to walk into that store, they're going to pick up a few boxes of porcelain, if you like, and then grab a couple of buckets of a ready mixed adhesive, and off they go. They haven't had any specialist advice. They haven't been told how it's got to be done, etc. It's a self-serve sort of operation. So I'm not knocking that in any way as well. So don't take that I'm knocking them. I'm just saying, but when we send them to a TTA recognised retailer, we know that they are 90% plus tile retail. They've got stocks, they've done samples, they'll do quotes, they'll do this and do all of that. That's what you get for going to one of them. You're going to be going to a specialist. And that's what we're trying to say about all the various categories.
Okay, so from a tiler's perspective, and I know you get this question a lot, why should a tiler join the TTA?
An independent tiler?
Yeah.
This is an area where we probably get the most flack. And I actually truthfully don't quite get it. What we're trying to do is always promote good tiling standards, good tiling practice, we're trying to always give them the knowledge. And I'm going to say something at this point. Bear in mind, everyone that works for the TTA, i.e. even myself, or anybody on the committees, they do it for free. So their time is afforded to the TTA by their employer that they work for, if you like. So nobody's getting money, nobody gets paid for it. We obviously have a secretariat that we have to fund each year. So we have admin fees that we've got to pay for, that's paid. But there's no big massive dividends paid every year to anybody. All the board members do it for free. They give up their time and try and direct and help promote tiles. Everyone's in it for the same reason, and that's to promote tiles and promote the tiling standards in the UK. So an independent tile fixer, if you, for instance, went find a tiler, you'll find that the TTA website comes up number 1 on Google. So, and then you put in find a tiler, you put your town in, etc., and it will list tilers. So the first point is there. Then what we're hoping, then it will say, why choose a TTA tiler? And then it will say, because he's a professional tiler, he's done this, and this is the criteria he hits. So it's giving you, again, a bit more, if you like, confidence in giving him a ring to come and give you a quote. You know what you're going to get is somebody there. One of the big things that we're trying to look at the moment, for instance, over the last couple of years through speaking to tilers as well and working with them and seeing the way the market's changing, we've launched what we call the Master Tiler category this year. And what we're trying to do here is promote the professional 5 day a week, 6 day a week tiler. Because what we're seeing in the industry, there's a lot of multi-skilled now. Yeah, so I'm a kitchen fitter, but don't worry about the tiling, I'll do that for you as well. Or I'm a plumber, I'll put the bathroom in, and don't worry about that because I'll do the tiling now as well myself, and I'll throw them up. And I'm not saying they're all bad, but multi-skilled seems to be a big thing these days, and I think that's down to lots of different reasons. Lots of people failing to do their city and guilds and the proper training like of the old days. Like we said, when you left school there was always an avenue, there used to be, where you could go and train and do something. That's a lot harder these days. So multi-skilled seems to be a thing, and of course when we were growing up that was,
I don't think there's
jack
anything
of all trades, master of none.
Well, yeah, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with multi-skilled, because I speak to a lot of tilers who multi-skilled, but they just so happen to be shit-hot tilers as well. But the tiling, from your perspective, the TTA, the tiling side of it definitely needs.
It's just trying to help them, and what we want to try and promote here is the tiler. We all know them, we see them, we work with them, we speak to them on a daily basis in our own jobs, and they're good tilers, but Monday to Friday they're tiling.
Yeah.
So you go onto some of these other websites that you can get, and you see that are just purely about money, yeah, because they don't offer any backup as such. They offer lots of money on advertising and things like that to try and get punters in to search on an area and then
leads.
Pick you. Leads, yeah, that's all it is. Where we're going to be saying, right, this guy, he is 90% tiling. He's been tiling for 10 years plus. He's passes we're going to do some form of like online questionnaire each year to renew. And the only reason we're doing that is not to catch anyone out, not to test, not to check on whatever, but it will be a great way for us to make sure that they've got all the latest up-to-date standards. So if any standards change, that will be part of that.
Yeah.
So we can say they are kept up to date. They will be sent any amendments to any guidance first. They'll be getting that, etc. So why would you choose a master tiler? Well, straight away I know that he tiles day in, day out. He's been tiling for 10 years. He's an association member. He's got this technical backup. He's got all of the proper documentations for everything.
Yeah.
But one of the big things I think tilers get a lot is, I don't want an expansion joint, I want you just to tile it, or I don't want that, I want you to do this, etc. And it can be hard for me when I go as a manufacturer and I say to somebody, you can't do that because it needs this. And they say, no, I don't want that, and you're saying that just because you're selling the product. I will always then pull out a TTA document and go, no, look, that's what says it. If you don't do that, it's wrong.
Yeah.
And then they'll go, oh, okay, maybe okay, how can we do it then? Can we do this? It's a third-party voice that's independent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the difference. They also get lots of other little things like legal helpline. I spoke about this earlier on today in a meeting I was at. I can remember a few years ago, a guy was coming up to retirement and he was being sued for £35,000. I think he'd only charged about 10 grand for his part of the job, and he hadn't been paid half of it. And now all of a sudden, at the end of this contract, he was being sued. He was at his wit's end. And we made sure that the legal team, he got in touch with them and he got told what he's got to do, what he's got to write, and then he had to phone them back, and then he got this sorted. And within a week, it was like, thank you so much, that's put to bed. Yeah. That's gone. He actually walked away from memory. I think he walked away from collecting a certain amount of money, but he was just over the moon because this court thing that was going to come at him, he just got rid of. The world we're in is a claim society these days as well. So to have that, I mean, that legal advice he got there was probably worth 5 years worth of subscriptions.
Yeah. And with regards showing customers the value of a tiler that's a member of the TTA, or you only let him join because you know he's good, basically, to put it bluntly.
Yeah.
But just
well, again, he hits the criteria.
Yeah.
So a retailer, right? If you've just opened a shop, you can't join. Unfortunately, you won't. You've got to be 2 years or so.
Yeah.
That was a criteria on the internet. There's always a criteria that we can then shout about and say, that's why you're going to go there. The internet one was a real interesting one. So, one of the criteria for an internet supplier to be on the TTA is he has to have an independent review site. So a Trustpilot or something like that.
Yeah.
He can't just put his own reviews up.
Yeah.
Mrs. Smith said I'm fantastic. It has to have an independent review site.
Yeah.
They have to also be stocking and things like that. They have to have their own, So what we don't want to be promoting is someone that's just drop shipping from a bedroom, should I say, and undercutting everyone in the market. We're trying to support that
Hard
market.
to undercut people when you're drop shipping. But I get what you mean.
Yeah, we want to know that where we're promoting and where we're pushing people to, they're specialists within their field, whether that's a retailer or whether that's a fixer. So we're trying to elevate tilers. Nearly all the fixers we have as members at the moment are master tilers. They've all been tiling for many, many years. That is their full-time job, day in, day out.
Yeah, so what I was going to say is that that's all great. And we can explain that to tilers and retailers, and it's in my opinion, it's right. Something like that should be done, because I've mentioned to you earlier, I see work that gets done by so-called tilers, and it's fucking disgraceful. And actually, sometimes it can be dangerous. But to get across,
it's more dangerous these days with the size of tiles.
Well, yeah, and it's like the customer doesn't know that. The customer has done a comparison with, let's say, the best tiler in the country and this fucking cowboy. The prices might be similar, even though the skill level is fucking worlds apart. The customer will go with.
So the cowboy's making it because he's charging the same rate that actually a professional would want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, more often than not, he'll undercut the professionals. I'll do it for that.
Yeah,
and then
disgusting.
what we're trying to do is give that professional the reasons that he can prove to somebody why they're worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I might be £200 more on my quote, but that's because I am X, Y, Z, etc.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. It's very difficult to give that get that through to a normal customer. It's only because they just don't know.
No. Well, that again is what we'd have on the website. If I go back to that Find a Tiler, we do appear number 1 on Google. Then what it will do is say, why should you choose one? If you choose one of these, that's because of this.
So
it doesn't mean that anyone that's not a member, by the way, isn't as good, obviously, because we want to support them as well. We want them to join.
I always say to every single person that I speak to, as a tiler or a tradesman or any trade, start using social media if you don't already. Just film yourself a little bit, and immediately, as soon as you say it, a lot of people are like, "Oh, fuck that." But it's important, because if you look at the guys who I've spoken to, or anybody who I haven't spoken to who does well on Instagram or TikTok, just 2 examples, but there's other things you can do. They're creating their own reputation, and they're not even doing anything that difficult. They've actually got good at doing it, but if you've never done it before, you could just film yourself once a week, and then gradually you'll get better at using the apps. And what they're doing is they're recording, just doing the job, and it might only be a few minutes a week or a few minutes a day. And then what they've started doing is all the apps are fucking free, so they're free to use, video editing apps. and then they're talking over the top and explaining, and because they know what they're on about, and they know what they're talking about, and they can prove that they've got the knowledge. That's what you've just explained to me, that the TTA gives a tiler to sell his value to a customer, to say, I'm registered and this is why I'll be a good option. These guys are doing it on social media.
Yeah, totally.
And I think if you can somehow, it would be a big marketing campaign, I suppose, on social media, because that's where most customers are looking. And some of the guys that I speak to, they've got customers that are waiting for them 6, 12 and 18 months because they only want that guy that they saw.
That guy to do it, yeah, totally.
Yeah. And he's created his own prestige because they know he's good, because he's done that many videos, and he actually, he's not hiding anything. He explains what he does. He's good. I want him.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, I'll use Jordan as an example. He's got 6, 12 months worth of bookings in. In the past, he might have been competing with a cowboy because nobody knows him. They're like, can you do the tiling? Can you quote a bathroom? Yeah. And other than maybe, I don't know if he's a member of the TTA, that's all he's got. He can say, I'm a member of the TTA. And I know you're making it a lot better than it used to be, but at the time, that would have been like, so? What the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
How much is it?
The market's always changing, is it? The market's... The industry's changing, everything's changing. Anything that can give yourself a bit of an edge or a bit of kudos, etc., is what everybody wants. All we've ever tried to do at the association is promote tiling as a whole. We have there's 3 pillars that we just work around now, and that we've set from our own review from a couple of years back, etc. And so the marketing committee work, the technical committee, and everybody works, and the raised tile and tiling standards, enhanced installation expertise. That's pillar 1. That's what it's all about. Craftsmanship, raising the tile and tiling standards. 2 is to improve the value of membership. So we're trying to improve that all the time. We're looking at the website now. Again, that's a big driver, obviously, of everyone these days. Again, if you went back 15 years, the webs were totally different. So improve the value of membership and attract and engage, retain, etc. And the 3rd one is promote the benefits of tiles and provide a unified voice. I think we do that pretty well. We've shown we did that exceptionally well through COVID. That was an opportunity to shine, and Kay and the team stood up. We were actually recognised by the government as being one of the most proactive associations, to the extent, actually, we even got invited to join the board of Build UK. Okay, that's basically the level that then report to the government. So the government have any issues within construction, they go straight to Build UK. And Kay Porter, who's the CEO of the TTA, is on the board of Build UK now, through the work that was done then. So, I mean, that was phenomenal. So, industry at government level, we've ticked that box. Yeah. And then we've got the next level, which is the master tiler. Yeah, which is what we, which we know then they're going to get all the advice. They don't just go and tile a job. They go around and explain a job. They tell the people what they need to do and how they need to do it and why they need to set out from here and why they do that. Because it's what they do. They're tilers day in, day out. And they're the ones we really want to start promoting. So, I'm not knocking. Don't take it as a knock, multi-skilled, because I know a lot of those tilers can also drop in and do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But we need to promote tiling. Because
I'm not knocking them either, but there's nothing else.
The core purpose we have is to build excellence in tiling and the tiled environment. That's all we're about. We're trying to create the whole lot of that. And if you think who our members are, from your Liffefins and your feelers, your sealer companies, to shipping agents that work bringing containers in from the Far East, to your BAL, your Ardex, your Mapeyes, your Liffefin, your Ultras, and so on, to the tile agents, to contractors like Simpsons and stuff for tiling and people like that, to the independent fixers. We're representing everybody, and anyone's allowed to get involved. A lot of those people are on committees. I was at the marketing committee earlier on, and the latest one to join now, he's been a tiler before, obviously Tiler of the Year as well, actually. Andy Carroll, he's now at Progress, Profiles, etc. He's now on the marketing committee. You actually said, could a tiler be the chairman? 2 previous chairmen have been tilers from memory while I'm thinking about that. Bob Howard was a chairman. He's a previous chairman of the association.
So my point, and if I ever speak to anybody who's in a senior position, and I wasn't just picking on you for that position, that reason. So if I spoke to the CEO of a big company, whoever, I'll always say to him, like, is there, because a lot of the time it's bullshit, there isn't. So I say, is there a path for someone who's an apprentice now, or someone who works in one of your shops, if you're that type of business, to become the CEO? And there isn't. It's not possible a lot of the time. So that's why I asked you.
I mean, Bob Howard from memory, he was a tiler, started off, and he heads up our technical side now for the inspections and things like that. But he's a past chairman, had a contracting business as well. And Brian Null, who's from Shackley, that's what he did when he left school. He was a tiler. Now he does all over.
So for a tiler now who's listening, I'm from everything you're telling me, and I've got no association with the TTA. Really don't care, to be honest.
I think the hardest thing for a tiler is it's giving up that time. So I'm lucky because I can thank, if you like, Larsen's involvement. Because they're the ones that pay me. I don't get paid by the TTA. If I go through all of the various committees and start looking at the people, and every year at the awards, which everyone pays for, again, they're not free and things like that. It's not a jolly or anything like that. Everyone pays towards it, and a lot of the gold sponsors, for instance, pay a lot to get the promotion of their brand on the day and things like that. And it's a fantastic night, and now we're doing the show in the day as well, the tiling show that we got lots more fixers at last year, which again is what we want, and the buzz around it was good. It's going to be bigger this year. We got more space this year.
So that path for a tiler, so those guys that used to be tilers, what's the route? So if a tiler's listening now, dreaming to be the chairman of the TTA, which I doubt.
I doubt there's one out there.
But I'm just interested how it happens, because everybody has a different path, and I bet you kind of fell into it. You did, in fact, if you go all the way back to what you just told us. You didn't start out in tiles. You were never thinking, "Oh, I'll be the chairman."
No, I joined one of the committees when I was at Instamac.
This is for a tiler. How does a tiler do it? And I know you've just mentioned some. He's not anymore, but he's the most recent one I can think of, Andy Carroll. He was a tiler when he was on this committee, wasn't he? So technically, he could end up being the chairman of the TTA.
He's a past tiler, isn't he? He's not a tiler now.
But he was at the time.
He's just joined today. He's just.
Okay,
he's just joined today. He's just come to the meeting earlier on. But for instance, the marketing committee or the training committee, we've got people. We represent all angles. So even on the board, we try and have all sections covered. So we've got the retail section covered from X board member. We've got the distribution covered from that board member. So we have sectors that we always try and make sure are covered. So we've got the contractors, the fixers, and so on. So the training committee, these are all the guys that all the tilers would know.
So how do they get involved? How does it happen?
Just send in saying I'd like to be part of that committee. You've got to be a member. You've got to be a member, obviously, to join. If you're a member of the tile association, then there's no reason why you can't join any of the committees.
And that's it. That's your first step to becoming the chairman of the TTA.
If you look at the training committee, etc., who have we got on there? You've got people from Schluter, people from Instamac, Bow, Simpsons, contractor there, etc. We've got a guy from Southern City College, Weddy, Bostic, CITB. The people that come on this, Map High, Cardiff and Vale College, another big, there's a real big supporter for tiling down there. Moderna, there's representations from all walks of life. Adrian Clements, Tyler. So
it says a lot.
He's on that committee.
To be honest,
there's no reason why anybody couldn't.
So everything we've just said, it would be nice, and the tiler. Because the tilers will say, well
that's our job to try and promote that.
Why should I join? So this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but that's our job.
What's so good about it for them?
That's what the marketing committee is about. That's what the training and technical committee is about. Take the technical committee. Now, that is one that you can't just apply. You have to send a CV to that, and Brian heads up that. And that's for a reason, because, what we don't want on that is a load of salespeople trying to get in, and, the only adhesive that works is manufactured in Stoke.
Yeah.
as a standard, because then it's obviously wrong. You know,
Sounds about right.
Everybody would try and give themselves a competitive edge, wouldn't they? So it's not. The only
thing
people
is,
that are
though,
on that technical committee.
thing
Because
is,
I've got to finish this
go
because
on,
people
sorry.
do knock it. That technical committee is made up of technical people. So
Yeah.
the relevant people within each of the organisations from all of the companies that all the tilers love as well. So they're all
Yeah.
from, you know, the number one brand of mat, the number one brands of this, the number one, and it's taken the people that work at that level to sit around the room. So when they come up with a document, it's the correct document.
Yeah.
And it's generic and it's right. We represent, if you then take British standards, so when the British standard gets amended, the TTA have more representation on British standard committees than any other industry. So who do they go to when they want to do a revision? In the old days with Europe and CE and all the rest of it, Brian Newell travels the world and he does it all at his own expense. That's not funded by the TTA as well. He does it because he cares, he's passionate. He's a phenomenal chap that heads up that side. And he does all that work. He's known throughout the world as well. So I'd say the knowledge that we actually put out there and put together. And what do we work on? We work on what we see failures happening. When we start to see failures happening in certain areas, that there seems to be a common ground here that this is going wrong, that's going wrong. That's when we'll try and do then a technical document on that. You know, so we worked out a good few years ago that a lot of failures were happening because of expansion joints, people doing this, more underfloor heating and all the rest of it. So that was revisited. Who do we pick? We pick the training, you know, from the technical side. We get the relevant people to then go and work out and the revisions, etc. And that's where standards then get changed as well. So it's totally there. So the more members we've got, the more we can do, the more we can reinvest. Nobody, as I keep saying, and I can't stress this, nobody takes money at the end of it. Nobody gets a freebie here and there. No, it's all done for the one goal, and that's to build excellence in tiling and promote tiling. So I get a little annoyed when people say, oh, it's a boys' club or it's this or it's that, because it's not. Yeah, we do it to try and promote the industry. And actually, everyone gains from that, whether you're a member or not as well. Because if we can promote tiles and we're promoting them in the correct way and getting knowledge out there, then things are just going to be better. So actually, even if you're not a member, you benefit from it.
So from that, right, so I'll give it you from the other side. Manufacturers being part of it, whatever I say now, you've just explained very well. And I know the technical guys don't really care. Well, obviously they do, but they don't really get involved in the commercials. And the technical guys, geeky technical guys, they know the shit, and they'll sit and talk about what's right and what's wrong rather than
maybe
how can I make sure how can I make sure our product gets mentioned. That's not what they do. It just isn't. But the other thing you mentioned, Old Boys Club, right? So I'll give it you from my perspective. The TTA specifically, I'm not quite sure, but it did seem that way, right? So from an outsider, it did seem that way to me. Good few years ago now. I didn't know you at the time at all. And in all honesty, from someone looking from the outside, it does look that way. It does, because you've got, and I'm not saying this isn't a bad thing, I'm just giving you what it could look like to somebody who doesn't know much about it and doesn't know you, never spoken to you or anybody who's a member. It is a load of very experienced men, not many women involved, who work for a load of established companies. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I'm just giving it you from the other side. But I think that's the industry in general as well. You could look at the industry and think, oh, it is a bit of a fucking closed. This is just my opinion. The industry in general is still a little bit closed. It is a little bit of a closed. And when I say the industry, I'm not just talking about tilers. I'm talking about retailers, manufacturers, distributors. It is a little bit closed, to be honest. But from everything that you've just said and the way that you've spoken before, actually. So I remember you told me a while back. Since I've known you, have you always been the chairman?
Probably, yeah. It's been about 6-7 years now.
Yeah. So then you explained to me, and I was like, fucking hell, if he does that. probably haven't known you about that long now, haven't I?
Yeah, but
And to be
there's
fair,
there's a whole board as well behind that.
Yeah, I didn't know them though, did I? You told me. So what you told me 6-7 years ago, maybe it was probably about the time. It wasn't. You hadn't been chairman for long if you had, and it might have been an incorrect opinion that I had on it. It was from a complete outsider at the time. This is the opinion I had of it, and then you explained to me. I was like, fucking hell. If that does happen, I'm not saying if Paul does all that, you're the only one that was speaking to me. Actually, it'd be all right for tilers and retailers who are involved, because the industry is a bit like that. And I know 6 or 7. You haven't changed it in 6 or 7 years, but it's changing.
No,
it's definitely changing.
Well, it is. I think we're all evolving though. The market's changing. As I say, the internet's a big thing for me. The website about promotion and so on. But I think that, what the training committee's done over the years, what the technical committee's constantly looking at, and where we're seeing issues, what we're seeing going forward, where do we need to be focusing on. All of those working groups get set up and people then go and investigate it and come up with an advisory document. External tiling's been one, etc. Large panels and so on have been another one that's baffling everyone. So we're working on those, etc. And that's basically where the membership goes. That's where the money goes. To do another.
We didn't do this. How much does it cost?
Huh?
How much does it cost? A normal tiler, how much does it cost?
£200 a year, something like that. It's, we're not talking huge amounts. How much does it cost some of the big companies? You're talking tens of thousands of pounds. Yeah. So, you mentioned, it's the big companies, etc. But if we didn't have those big companies, it might be £5,000 for a manufacturer because he's doing X. But what I want to say is, when you add up that he's got a member of staff that's doing the technical committee, he's got a member of staff that's on the marketing committee, they're meeting 4 times a year, he's meeting 4 times a year, he's allowing all that time. Before you know it, and you start adding up, they've nominated somebody to go and work on that working group and that working group. And these are all people that a lot of the communities love as well, because if you want to ask him, they're also doing work for us.
They've got a day job,
and their own day job, and then they're being afforded the time to go and work on that because they benefit from it, because we end up with a document at the end that says X. If you don't do that, it's going to not automatically fail, but if it's failed and it started cracking in this way, it's because of that. There you go. That's what that said.
Yeah.
You start adding up the cost of that company now, and you're talking huge amounts because, covering the cost of sending that member of staff. And that's where I think we struggle sometimes, and that's why I understand a fixer. For him to turn up for a day and come to Stoke, or we have them on Zoom now as well, so it's easy. They don't have to come to Stoke. But it's a day off the road. It's a day, it's different, isn't it, when you're self-employed, and I totally get that.
Yeah.
That it's not a cost to that employee that's afforded the time by his employer to go and do it in a way. It's a cost to the employer. And I don't think we take that into account sometimes.
Yeah.
But there's no hidden, the funny thing to me is there's no hidden agenda. Everyone does it for their passion for the industry that we're working in and to keep promoting.
Yeah. So
our biggest threat is our competition, and it's not, my competition isn't Mapai or Ultra or Norcross, for instance, to come back to my side. My competition's LVT. Yeah. The wood floors again and things like that, and vinyl and other coverings. That's what my competition is. I don't want to see that being promoted. I don't want to see house builders knocking tiles off the specs, etc.
Yeah.
I don't want to see the latest leisure centre go into X, Y, and Z. I want tiling.
Yeah.
I've done the recent big golf club and new changing rooms and swimming pool, etc. The amount of tiling we did there was phenomenal. If they'd suddenly decided it was LVT, that's huge for us. So when you go through it and look at the people that are working from the companies, it's all
so that's
about
what I mean,
promoting.
and that's why I said it in that way. So from the outside, it can seem that way.
And sometimes it's not always the answer. It's like the technical reports. They're a big talking point sometimes. And sometimes it's because it's not the answer they were hoping for. A report says it's X, Y, and Z. And I think there's 100 square metres of tiling and there's no expansion joints anywhere, and tiles have started tenting. Well, there's a technical document and a standard that says if you tile over that, then that's going to happen. And
you'll get that. And I think most people would agree with you there, but it's true. To be honest, if it happened to me, I'd be pissed off. Oh, fucking not. I pay for But I think most people will say, yeah,
But that's
of course.
But a report will only ever. It's not an opinion. It's not. I didn't like the look of it, so it didn't look as though it had been done well. The report will be based purely around standards. Was the lipping exceeding X? Was there expansion at the perimeter? Was there this? Was there that? If there's not a standard, we don't comment on it. We don't comment on the look of the tile. Didn't like the look of the tile. You know, it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
So when a report is done on that basis, it is purely done, is it within standard? If it's within standard, it will be passed and said it's not the fault of that.
So when you do a report, is this something that the tiler or anybody can request? If they're a member, do they get... So let's say there's a...
We've seen an increase on technical reports over the last few years. And I think that, again, I mentioned earlier, we're coming to a claim society, aren't we, where things go wrong. There was a big one a couple of years ago that blew up on social media that the report was worthless, and there you go, another TTA technical report was worthless and all this. It didn't do that, which I noticed, and I quickly made a couple of phone calls and then found out. And the reality of that story was the chap that had the report done was over the moon with it because it won him the case. Without it, he wouldn't have won the case. What had actually happened was he was claiming X amount of money, but only got awarded about 80% of what he wanted. But he said, without the report, I wouldn't have got anything.
Yeah.
But that Chinese whispered into he hadn't got what he wanted. But we actually had got a letter actually saying, thank you so much for all of the work. It was sent to Bob and his team as well, and to here. That was unbelievable, because without that report, I would have literally lost the case. He explained a bit more about who the judge was on the day, who didn't know anything about tiling and God knows what else, which I won't get into. But he said that's what won us. And it was quite bizarre that it had blown up on social media that it was completely worthless, etc. But it was obviously lost in translation somewhere. So, but you know, I can't stress enough that that's just about promotion of excellence in our industry and promoting tiles as a whole. That's all it's about.
Yeah.
There is no secret bars and free games of golf. You want to play? If I play golf in the golf day, which I'm happy to say is fantastic because it's sold out again, I'll pay for it. You know, we don't charge fortunes or anything like that. It's nothing to do with that. It's about getting people together and having a bit of fun. And it's about engaging. We all need a bit of a break every now and then. And if we can run a golf day for 70 quid with bacon
that's
roll,
something else that you can quash more. So golf days and awards evenings, and I think it's like partly not being involved in it, but you can get the opinion of, oh fucking hell, another jolly for the same old boys. But
yeah,
literally any member can get involved
any
in
member
any
can.
of that. Yeah,
you don't have to be a member. You don't have to be a member to come on the golf day. It's a golf day. That's it.
Yeah,
it's like anything else. There you go. It's being held on
generally
that
for
day.
charity as well.
Eh?
They're charity golf days as well, aren't they? So they're not even.
Yeah,
they're not just a
the
jolly.
last one we did, because we try and raise quite a lot for Children's Today. That's our chosen charity that we work with most years, and it's a shame really, because I've seen over the years it's gone down at the awards from the amount we used to get. But again, I think that's down to the likes of, you know, the big Pilkingtons and BCT and Johnsons and all that used to be there and outbidding each other on, you know.
Yeah.
It was more bravado than anything else, but we've seen that drop slightly. So at the golf day last year, decided we'd charge everyone. Well, you didn't have to; it was optional. Chuck a tenner in, and you get a mulligan, so you can have a free tee shot if you shank one into the bushes, sort of thing. And that was that. And that tenner went straight to Children's Today, and they actually presented or offered us a set of clubs that were made from the propeller of the QE2. So sort of full set. They were unbelievable. They were all inscribed as well. That the heads were made from the propeller, but there was a minimum of 500 quid on that, and I'm happy to say somebody bid on it on the day as well. So yeah, we made well over £1,000 that day to Children Today as well.
Yeah,
but and we'll probably be looking to do something at the next one.
Yeah, just
in June, to
make it clear to everyone, it's not a secret handshake club or anything. Literally anyone can go. If you're a member, you can. I've
already got my invoice for a 4-ball because I've put a 4-ball in for it as well, but I'll be paying for it, etc. So yeah, and then on the
because it can seem that way. You know where I'm coming from, don't you? It can seem that way from the outside, And I'm only saying it because I used to
Yeah,
think.
but anybody, unfortunately, at the moment, it's now sold out again. But we are looking to do another one later on in the year, and I think it's great because it's all about getting members together for a bit of a release, for a bit of a night, and you know the trips we did to Spain last year that we got through through ASA, they were phenomenal. Again, that's nothing to do or no cost, etc., associated to the TTA. That's because of the work we've been doing with we work closely now with the Spanish Association, the Italian Association. We've got meetings also planned up with the Turkish Association, for instance. But the Spanish Association, who are a bit different to us, they just represent manufacturers. That's all. They don't represent fixers and things like that. They just represent the manufacturers, but they've got a lot, obviously, in and around the Castellon area. I think I once heard there's 200 factories or something within a 20-mile radius.
Yeah.
And the Castellon Council, or local government there, etc., obviously the tile industry is huge to them. So they fund ASO and for trying to promotion of tiles, etc. And then they contacted us. We got an award off them for being the most proactive worldwide association they work with. So that would be up against, last year that would be up against the American Tile Association, the Australian Association, and so on and so on. And they said, look, we've got some funding for up to 20 people or whatever. We did one for fixers, because we wanted to try and get fixers out there to show how the big, large panels are manufactured. And we did 2 fantastic trips. So they covered the flights and the hotel. And they picked us up on a coach. The fixer one was fantastic. It was all of them got on brilliantly, and it was interesting. We had a half day of fixing in a like a college environment there. That was good fun. A few disagreements were had by the Spanish fixers and the English fixers, but it was interesting. And they got to see all these factories, etc. So and we went around probably a dozen factories, had a few tours, seeing all the tiles made, and it was brilliant for them. Everyone thoroughly enjoyed it, and I have to say it was a great time. And then we did another one with retailers.
How did I remember it happening? How did the tilers apply for that and get chosen for that? Because it's brilliant. Cause
they didn't get chosen; they applied. It was put out that we've got these places, etc.
Yeah.
Would anyone be interested in going and seeing a trip to Valencia with factory tours, etc.? You know, the retailers, we put it out to them, and then we managed to get from ASA, they gave us a list of all these factories and said, is there any preferences?
Yeah.
So again, we just shared it out to the people that were coming on it and said, has anyone got preferences? And we managed to actually work it. It worked really well because 6 people have said they'd love to go to that factory, and we managed to tailor it even.
Yeah.
So, for instance, there quite a lot wanted to go to a particular factory that did the 20mm stuff. So we actually went to a factory that producing 20mm porcelain. It was all being produced on the day, so we were seeing it formed, we were seeing it pressed, we were seeing it through the kilns, and
it's really good.
It was a great bar by the hotel as well.
Well, yeah. The more you can do of that, so it all ties back into what I was saying before. If the tilers should want to be part of something that sets them out as like this is the professional body, and then.
Well, that came through the TTA, yeah. I mean,
but,
you're welcome to contact ASA and see if they'll book you a flight and send you over, but it ain't going to happen. But the TTA, because of how we've been working with them, and we're working closely, for instance, again, go back to that environmental issue, the impact of a tile. If you take a tile as being manufactured, it's awful. It's going through a kiln at God knows how many degrees, So it's terrible. So it's very easy for our competition to sell against us and actually get specified vinyl, for God's sake, plastic in a way. So what we're looking at and what we work on is the life cycle of a tile. And there is no other harder floor covering than a porcelain ceramic tile. And it lasts 60 plus years. There's documentation done how it will last longer. So the life cycle of a tile from an environmental impact, it knocks everyone for 6.
Yeah.
And that's where we try and promote, and that's what we're promoting on.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So the more of these types of things, it's impossible to get all the tilers out on these things all the time. Yeah. But the more opportunities you're giving to people, it's just a more opportunity. It's an experience. If you go to a tile factory or a few tile factories, just that experience has given you knowledge just by being there and looking at it. You're learning all the time, and that's what I mean. It's giving these tilers more value to say to the customer. So, did you know that this, that, and the other, and this is why I'm offering you more value, And ultimately, they get paid more. They get paid what they're worth. They're not competing with fucking idiots all the time.
I've been to the factory. I've seen how these are made. I've seen this. I've seen them all, all being packaged off.
It's not even necessarily saying I've been to the factory. It's just it's the knowledge. It's learning, and a lot more of the manufacturers are doing it now, and a lot more often. I've noticed. I don't know. I'm pretty sure they're doing it more often now, and I'm pretty sure it's because they're kind of competing with each other now to do more training days. And it's a brilliant type of competition to have. Who can do the most training days?
Yeah,
and it's good. It's good for the whole industry. And for me, it's important to get to the end customer. If we're going to say the TTA is the thing to be I don't know, gold standard. I've got a fucking gold TTA badge on my van or on my shirt or on the sleeve of my shirt. End customer needs to know what that is. That's up to you guys, I suppose. You're number three on your things.
Build excellence and promote tiling. That's all it's about. There's no, I can't say enough. There's no hidden agenda. There's no pay. There's no whatever. Everyone's does it for the benefit. Nobody's blocked from joining. Nobody's blocked from having a say. Speak up. Join. Yeah. Don't stand outside shouting in.
Well, the thing is,
come inside and shout.
This would be me as well. You can join and get involved, and then say, "Well, that bit's not very good, is it?" You can do that. It's fine.
The slight problem I think you'll always have with any association in any industry is, I think you're a bit like the AA. Do I really see the value of it? You only see it when you break down. You only see it when you need a bit of help. You only see it really when you need. But because what they do miss and what they don't see sometimes, and this is where we need to get better, is the amount of hits we get on that website, the amount of clicks on that person's name, find a retailer in that town. Not just the amount of clicks on find a retailer, but we can actually start to determine how many actually went find a retailer in Grimsby, find a retailer there, right, that one, click, I want them details. It's huge. I can remember a past Tyler of the Year, within the first 4 months or something of joining and being on that website, she'd picked up half a dozen jobs. Phenomenal. That's worth your 150 quid or whatever it was back then a year on its own. Because then the knock-on of that, because, I would always say the Tylers we've got are all fantastic anyway, because they're in and they're on. They've got the right mindset. They see a value to being associated with the association. They're conscientious or whatever, and they do all of that work. I would expect every single one of them that are there would be what we're trying to promote now as master tile fixers, specialists, in other words, full-time specialist tilers, not part-time jobbing, multi-skilled. It's all we ever want, isn't it? It's the same. Go back into your own work and you always just try and do the right thing.
Well, it's these guys being knowledgeable, but then getting that across and making sure the work that gets done is always I mean, just in the last few months, I've seen some absolute horror shows, and it's like, if only you'd have chosen the correct tiler, but the customer doesn't know.
No,
there's no way for them to know. Like, for example, I saw one fucking abortion, like terrible. I would have walked away from it. I even said to the customer, and I wouldn't normally do this, but it was that bad. I said, you probably should have this ripped out before it goes too far, because it's going to fail at some point. And they didn't. And the reason they didn't is because the tiler said he had 25 years experience and he knows what he's doing. And that, what not just me, but what people were saying was wrong. He did it for a reason. Blob sweet talked his way out of it, got paid, fucked off. It will fail at some point. And that customer's none the wiser.
It's a shame, though, isn't it? It's a shame.
Yeah, because over the next few months, that immediately when a lot of customers will look at it and say, "Oh, the tiles look good. It's new install, nice." But over the next few months, they'll start thinking, "Should that fucking niche have a mitre on the corner? And like, should that grout line be twice the size of the one next to it?" And you start noticing stuff, but it's too late then.
Yeah, but you find yourself looking at tiles.
That's why we need to get rid of all that, though.
Yeah,
and it's like it'll take a lot of work. But getting the tilers involved from I think social media is the place to do it, because that's where the customers are looking.
This is another way that we've changed it, and we're working a lot more. We're working with forums now. We'd never have worked for forums. So you could technically say that if you went back 10 years, they'd never gone near a forum, etc.
Yeah.
But we're changing, and all in agreement. The board are fantastic behind the whole of this plan now. It's a much more diversified board. It's going in the right direction. Forums we have to work closer with. We've been working great with the Tyler's forum.
Yeah.
They're all,
I've seen. So I don't know which other ones you're involved in, but I know you've done a lot with Tyler's community.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. I mean, look at that. That is all specialist tilers. They're all full-time tilers,
and that's great.
Yeah,
I think that to be honest, hopefully they'll listen to this and give the TTA a call. You don't even have to join to get information from you. You can ask whatever you want. But getting those guys involved and understanding.
We're not an enemy. We're there to help.
Well,
that's.
I think most of those guys will say, "Yeah, we need something to." So at the end of the day, so they get paid what they're worth. Obviously,
they're a skill. They're a skilled trained.
They'll care about everything else that we've just said. It needs to be correct. All the standards need to be, but ultimately, they need to get paid for what they're worth. And I think I've said it on a million podcasts before. A lot of them even underestimate themselves. They're worth a lot more. The skills that they've got are worth more than they're actually.
And I'll just take you straight back to why we're trying to elevate them.
Yeah,
that's what we're trying to create, this master tile fixer category, to elevate the full-time tiler. We're actually friend, not enemy,
Yeah.
But anyway, that's.
So.
My phone's always open if anyone wants.
Where do people? If they don't already know, where did they go to look?
Go on to the Tile Association website.
Everything's there that you need.
Everything's there, yeah. Contact numbers, email addresses, etc., and then drop a line. Come to the golf. The next one will probably be around October time because the June one looks as though it's full. Come to the tiling show. On the
when is it?
That's at the same time as the awards. Is it 12th of May?
May.
I'll check that date.
I don't know.
May at the NEC, same place as last year, and we had an awful lot of fixers last year, which was fantastic to see a lot more there.
It was good.
Want more retailers coming to it as well. We've got some tile manufacturers again there this year, some good brands. But certainly we promoted that on Tyler's community again, and the feedback last year was fantastic.
That's something else.
We've got a bigger area this year.
If somebody wants to know something anyway, they don't even have to ask the TTA. They can just do a post on whatever group and say, what do you think of this thing that the TTA do, or is it worth joining, or whatever, and just you'll get a discussion going and you'll get people's honest opinions.
Friday the 12th of May.
12th of May.
Yeah. And we've got, all of the people that they'll want to see there, from trim suppliers, cutters, adhesive manufacturers, all the big brands will be there. It's the only show we have in the UK as well. So it's central in Birmingham, 10 till 4 in the day.
It is actually, isn't it? There is other shows, but they're kind of specialised in
KBB and things like that. But you'll never get one that's as specific to our industry as this one.
Yeah.
And all of the manufacturers, whether it's Genesis, Ultra, Bell, Ardex, they'll all have something to be given away on the day as well. So it's always worth coming.
Very good.
For the freebies, we have special rates for car parking and things like that. I mean, last year we had so many hours for free and all this sort of thing. We negotiated with the hotel for them as well.
It's all on the website.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to tell people, mate? I think I've more or less covered everything that I wanted to ask you.
No, we're pretty much there. That's the element I don't get paid for. The other side, I'm happy to say, is going really well. So, at Larsen, we're doing fantastic. We've seen growth year on year.
Well, that's a good point, actually. Anyone listening who uses Larsen, Paul's your man anyway.
Yeah.
Get in touch with Paul. Thank you very much, mate.
Great team behind me as well. So that's all I need there.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.